Hey guys, welcome to the Sea Planner podcast. My name is David. I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine, Alec, creator of Itty. He's also part of the Culture Corner down in India. Ask about it. Welcome, bro.
Appreciate you for having me.
All right, so I'm glad that I got you. We doubled back. Get a chance to redeem myself.
And get it right the next time.
Get it right the next time. We're pretty creatives, you and I, and so like we don't like to put out
Mediocre stuff.
mediocre
And
stuff and
I
stuff.
think when you're creative too, you're your own worst critic
For sure.
9 times out of 10. So I could appreciate the fact that, the standard that you set upon your podcast, like, you try to keep that bar
For sure, man. I
at
appreciate
the
it.
highest.
I appreciate the fact that you see that, and my listeners. I hope that they bear with me, that we can continue to make great content. And one of the reasons why I got you out here is because throughout the pandemic, I saw certain things. Unfortunately, you had um, a loss of a good friend of you,
Yeah.
of yours.
He was basically my brother and like the right hand of Eddie. And
Yeah,
yeah, when things happen like that, I think it just forces you to kind of go a little harder. And with everything that I do, he lives through me. So
that's great, bro.
yeah, we have this next capsule coming out.
Mhm.
So the inspiration behind it was kind of crazy because, yeah, I was just on a drive like I kind of do every now and then, and coming through Idlewild back through Anza, I saw this house, and it just kind of like sat at a peak, and the architecture behind it was like so astounding that I wanted to come back to it and find it. So I was telling Nick about it, and I was like, "Hey, bro, like I found this house. I think we should shoot our lookbook and things like that." And we went back to it. He loved it. We started like teasing at the idea of like how we wanted to do things and um, how we wanted to shoot it and present it. Then unfortunately and unexpectedly passed away back in October. So here we are like months later, and a good friend of mine, Kiros, who's like a really known
Great.
videographer
Yes,
in the community,
for
and
sure.
yeah, I hit him up. I was like, "Hey, bro, like, what's up? Like, your Instagram's deleted. Like, are you still working?"
Right.
And yeah, I don't know if you realized, but he was like kind of checked out on it. He didn't want to do videography anymore.
Uh huh.
So I told him like, "Hey, I got this project," and he's like, "Bro, I don't even have a camera right now."
Hopefully he listens to this and
Yeah,
yeah,
and like I just told him like, "Bro, you're such a catalyst in this community. Like, we need you."
for
And
sure.
Daniel had like a big talk with him too. So yeah, we're I think we got him back in the game, and like he's a very important piece
For
with like
sure.
putting everybody's ideas together.
Yeah,
And
he's a big glue to this whole thing because
yeah.
we have ideas,
Mhm.
but there's only a few people that can actually like we're I would consider myself an artist, but we're artists that need another artist to enhance our ideas.
Absolutely.
And so he takes it to the
He's
next
so
level.
good at like being able to take whatever like sitting in your brain and making it like a cohesive idea, and just like checking off all the checkpoints that you need. And yeah, he's ready to get back into it. We're gonna shoot the lookbook and the promo video next weekend. So yeah, Itty 01 unfinished business. It's pretty cool like how everything's kind of mapped its way out, because the house itself,
Mhm.
um, they didn't finish the actual building out.
Oh, okay.
So right now it's just like a
Just a
shell.
just a foundation.
It's just like the foundation, and the way they built it was structurally just rebar and concrete,
Uh-huh.
and they had molds to like make
Oh,
it
okay.
kind of like stand up, and it's very futuristic because there's no stairs in the house. Like they just had an elevator shaft.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, and it's
how do
like
you even get up there? Do you or do you just stay on the first floor?
no, yeah. So it's kind of, I can't even really explain it because you walk in and there's kind of like what should have been a swimming pool that it's just all concrete, bro. And like you walk into it, you have like some steps, and then there's like a swimming pool that was supposed to be there, and then you have like the main floor, and then you have like the floor above you that you can't get to because like the elevator shafts, all boarded up and whatnot. And then you have like a den or like what maybe would have been a garage below you, and then behind it in the backyard is like was supposed to be a jacuzzi.
Since we're talking about foundations and the root of like the origin of like maybe what that project would have been as a house, can you let the listeners know what ITI is all about and how we can understand like what you're doing?
Yeah, so ITI at its core is basically community. That's what we represent, is
Okay.
like who we are as people. Anything that I share, I want to share with our community or the people that represent us, or our followers, or however you want to basically describe the people that want to support. So
How did it come up?
so how it came about was this company that I had, Cloud9 and Company.
Okay.
This was at the height of streetwear, when Fairfax was kind of like a global phenomenon, like
So
2012.
so you trying to get into Fairfax in LA?
Yeah, that was like
That
the
was a
the
goal.
ultimate goal, was to be like a Nick Diamond, or
So you had some great inspirations.
yeah. So like I saw what streetwear was becoming, and how much of like the culture I wanted to be a part of, and making clothes that were like a representation of me and my people, and kind of like pop culture at the time, or
Was
like
that when you were a young buck
yeah, this was
or
fresh out of high school.
but you grew up out here?
Yeah, I grew up in Palm Springs.
How did that come about? Because um, LA culture is completely different than Palm
Yeah,
Springs. How'd you get immersed into that?
I'd probably go back to middle school. Like growing up, there wasn't big influence in my life for like pop culture or like rap and
Hip
things like
hop.
that, and hip hop. Um, as I started to be like an athlete and play basketball and travel ball and stuff like that,
Oh, it
it
opened up.
just slowly like I was just immersed in it and thrown into it, and I was just so like taken back because
Okay.
I grew up on like alternative and like R&B, and like more kind of like Nirvana, Audio Slave, Soundgarden, Lenny Kravitz, Santana, stuff like that.
Okay.
Once I got into middle school, I remember specifically Young Jock is Going Down was playing in the gym. And I
Damn.
see everybody in the gym just going, just doing the dance. And I'm just like, wow, this is like,
Yeah.
it blew my mind. And then I
Mm.
found out who Lil Wayne was. And then that was like another thing, like his mixtapes and like Bape. Like once I saw like the Bape hoodies that zipped up all the way, and like going to
All
swap
the way up to the
meets
top.
and like bootlegs and stuff like that, I was like, wow, like I need to be a part of this or like learn about it.
But what the swap meet game and all the bootleg stuff came from not having the means
Yeah, a little bit
or
of both. Like I mean,
or did somebody bring you into that?
they brought me into it, but then also like it was affordable. My mom was a single mom with 4 kids or 3 kids at the time. My youngest brother was born when I was 13, so
Dang, that's
being
a
a
big
yeah,
deal.
being a single mom of 3 boys, like she had to make it work. And
And then plus you're 13, your mom's got to take care of a baby. You're probably completely
yeah,
like,
and then my
hey,
stepdad came in the picture and like just held it down for the
oh
whole
sweet,
family and
that's
stuff.
what's up.
Yeah, and then like I mean, obviously like my dad's been a pivotal part of my life too, but split household, I mean, you could only imagine. So
Wow, so you had a lot to work with as a young kid.
yeah, definitely. But like it's just one of those things that it just, you don't even think about it as a kid. You just become a part of it.
Right.
And I had a great childhood and things like that. But like going back to like the influence of like streetwear,
Yeah.
like I wanted to be a part of that, in a sense that I could make it myself,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't understand how to get to like said part of actually having a brand and like what was a representation of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like Cloud9 and company, like I love the logo and like ways to kind of like branch off of it, but it didn't have meaning. Like
Do you still have that? Do you?
no, that
No.
came and went so fast.
Oh,
Like
really?
yeah, we did like a promo tee and then one t-shirt that was really cool in a sense of like the graphic. It was like a few windmills and like it said Cloud9 and then in the sun was our logo with the nine and whatnot. Very like a representation of that time as
What
far as like graphic
were
design
you
goes.
collaborating with somebody else at that time?
Well, I had a business partner, my
Okay.
homie Andrew, that we went to school with, and um he went off to school for graphic design and stuff like that, and he I told him like, hey, like I love our brand, but I want this to be more like a sense of community and like ways that we could have a representation of our brand be more like of a catalyst for like the culture and the community in itself. Like
Out here in the valley.
yeah, out here in the valley, but then also like bigger picture, like
Oh, right.
eventually building to those kind of
Fairfax.
standards, you know.
Yeah.
And
But you wanted to have a great foundation so that you can stand on it
yeah,
proudly,
absolutely.
and have the people look at you as some like a staple in the
Mhm.
in the culture.
Yeah, so like I sat with him and I was like community, community, community. Like that was like the focal point the whole time.
Hmm.
So I saw the suffix like itty and I was like we could plug and play this with anything in said like representation of like what we want to like pinpoint. So like you could take itty like the suffix of any word, put that in the back of it and just like plug and play it with
Yeah,
whatever
that's very clever.
said person represents of themselves. So I sat with Itty and I was like, bro, like we got to get the cursive right, and then we got to put an infinite, like an infinity sign in the Y somehow.
I seen that.
Yeah, so like I sat with him. He's like, bro, this goes against like the standard of graphic design. Like the weight of it doesn't sit right.
He
And
was
I was like,
upset.
he was so upset. And I was like, bro, like I just told him like I was just like, bro, fuck whatever you learned in school. Like
Yeah.
we just gotta do this. Like the infinity sign was like so important to me because it was
Right.
like this is limitless. Like
Mhm.
you could plug and play this in any type of way. But he just sat like so much with like the standard of graphic design.
Right.
And
You
I
gotta
was
break rules sometimes.
yeah, and like I think with anybody that's like been very like influential or anything like that, they've like gone against the standard
Of course.
and like broke those rules and like those new things like found a way to kind of
You always carve a path, and
mhm.
sometimes people feel like you're lost. They look at you and you're just off into your own world,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you get to where you're supposed to be, and you look back and there's a group of people that are following you
yeah,
because eventually they start to see the picture that you know that you or the path that you created and they liked it.
mhm.
They followed. Not that they're followers, but they see that your vision, you stand alone
Yeah.
as a person.
And it sits with them and resonates in some type of way.
Exactly.
But then also back to like where the like trying to get people to understand the brand as well. Like I remember sitting at a bar and this guy's like, "What does ITTY stand for?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Man, like this guy is drunk. I'm kind of like inebriated a little bit too, and I just get diarrhea of the mouth, and it
Right.
just kind of rolls on and rolls on, and I'm explaining it to him like probably after like 3 to 5 minutes,
Uh-huh.
and then by the time I got done like talking with him, he just had this blank look. He's like, "Oh, all right, dog," dapped me up, and he walked away, and I was like, "Man, I gotta like dumb this down to where people understand it, like itty, like as a community, and like da 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 da." And then I was like, I need to break it down into one kind of like go-to line. So I sat with Itty, and I was like, you know, I just want to be able to share with I to you. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we could break Itty into an acronym, I to you industries, or like whatever said thing that we want to be able to share with our community, whether it's like our clothing, whether it's like music, an event,
Community service.
community service, like doing things like toy drives and
Yeah, bro.
any type of thing for like the homeless out there in the desert, which is like very um, not that it's a problem, but like it's very much a thing, like in
Yeah,
downtown where
look, the thing is that people dismiss these people, but
yeah.
they grew up here.
Mhm.
They're part of who we are. So if we ignore that, that shows that it shows um a version of us
Mhm.
where we're ignorant, we're dismissive, like, and we grew up. Sometimes we grew up just so if you don't understand something, you either fear it or dismiss it, and I feel like we should do a better job, our generation and the generations to come, and even us to teach the older generations to say, you know what, um, let's do something for our community
Mhm.
because nobody else is going to do it.
And
I really appreciated. I think you did that for Christmas, right?
yeah,
The toy. It was a toy drive,
right.
and everybody. Actually expanded throughout the whole. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so me and Nick, probably like about a month before he passed away, we sat down with each other and we're like, hey, like this pandemic and this quarantine really took people like aback financially and like just mentally in all kinds of ways. So we're like, man, we should do like a toy drive for the community. A lot of people are out of work. That EDD's running out for a lot of families. The government hasn't done much, so let's find a way to give back to parents that can't provide for their kids, and more so just like get a toy to some kids that probably aren't gonna get any this season coming up.
Give
So
us you putting a smile on their face.
yeah, so he passed away. His aunt came to me, and I guess he had a conversation with her. And shout out to Yana. She came to me and she was like, "Hey, Nick talked about a toy drive. Like I want to do that in memory of him." So I was like, "Wow, we talked about doing this through Itty,
Uh-huh.
and like I'd love to be a part of it." So we started putting out flyers in different places. I spoke with Marcel, who owns Gabino's, and this was I was working for him too, and I'm still working for him. But I was like, hey, can we put like these boxes in front of the business and like maybe spread the word about the toy drive? And then I went out to Everbloom in India, did the same thing with EJ and Matt, and they were like, yeah, we'd love to. And just the community response was just so profound, and it was heartwarming to see
For sure.
that everybody like got behind it. They really like spread the word, and
Even through these tough times, people want to give. I feel like if we can give avenues for people to not just express themselves, but also um, to feel part of something and
mhm,
give, it makes it easier for people. Sometimes they're like, well, I don't know who to give it to. Who's
yeah,
gonna take it? Money, is it gonna be well spent?
right,
And when like the avenues of obviously the word being spread, but also like social media,
mhm,
um, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. I think w- being able to use those kind of mediums to spread the word real quick, um, all those messages get picked up real quick.
yeah. And then like the way people were able to kind of just keep it going and
Hmm.
like sharing it, but more so just supporting, like whether it was through like sending some Venmo to me, and then I would go out
Buy some
buy the
toys.
stuff at Target or wherever, and then take the toys, and having that level of transparency too, like, hey, thank such and such for giving this
Support.
donation, giving them a shout out, you know, showing them the actual toys that I went out and bought.
Yeah,
Cause like I think it's people, they kind of get like this thing of like this stigma of like, oh, are they just pocketing the money or whatever? It's like, hey, no, like we have all these tables full of toys. Got to the point where we had leftover toys, and then I took them to Martha's Village, and then they were really like ecstatic about it. So we are able to touch from Palm Springs all the way to Indio and past like the east side of the valley, and made an impact for people in need, which
that's very neat,
is
man.
something that we're gonna keep going as well, like year in and year out, just in Nick's memory, just keep it going. And
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, seeing how much we could keep impacting our community.
So now you were talking about maybe we can move forward and figure out uh the new you were talking about being at this house
Mm-hmm.
and having it be an inspiration for you.
Yeah.
What like can you talk about your piece, your
Yeah.
pieces?
So, um, initially we wanted it to be like 5 or 6 different garments. So like it was like a couple hats, the hoodie, some sweat shorts, and then 2 shirts. And the message behind it was unfinished business because me and Nick obviously didn't get to um, finish this capsule together. The house itself wasn't finished itself as well. And then I think it kind of plays into part with like everybody involved too, because I think everybody's kind of in this moment where they want to take that leap of faith into whatever said thing
So
that they're
everything's
doing.
unfinished until
Yeah,
yeah.
like even with Omar, like I don't want to speak too much about like his personal stuff, but he was thinking about just giving it up.
Hmm.
And then me personally too, I was just like, man, like I don't have my right hand, my go-to with this business either. Like, do I really want to pursue this? It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money to just put up yourself. So I was like, nah, like this has to serve more than just whatever it is I'm going through to kind
It
of.
it all that did all that come internally? Like that
Yeah,
was just an
I,
internal
I
dialogue?
sat with it for like two months probably because we had did memoriam t-shirts for Nick, and I was in the middle of like finishing this all up too. Like I had all the blanks and whatnot, and I was like, um, I don't want to put anything out in between that time just to be respectful of my brother and whatnot.
Of course.
So with the business, I was just like, man, like I could just like let all these pieces sit in the corner and collect dust for the rest of my life, or I could like really go hard and put out like a really fine-tuned capsule, like where like you could see like I took a lot of attention to detail and like the things that we had in mind, like just kind of like took this passion project into like a real like fundamental business, like um yeah, just find ways to serve this for inspiration for other people, but more so myself, because like that was the hardest thing personally was like, you know,
Continuing.
yeah, continuing like with this business. I mean, if anybody knows anything about like starting a business, like it's a lot of capital, man. Like,
It's a lot of work to put into a
right,
project.
and then also just working with other people as well. Like finding those dates where things kind of jive with
Yeah.
everybody, and like that's half the battle, is being able to make it work for everybody as a whole.
With the what did you call them?
Memoriam T-shirts, like
Memoriam T-shirts.
in memory of.
What came about that? What did you do with the
Yeah.
profits?
So those T-shirts that we did, me and a good friend of mine who was like really friends with Nick as well. She's really good at like drawing and whatnot. So I reached out to her. I was like, hey, I want to do these T-shirts, and she drafted up something real fast. And I was like, what would be cool is if all the funds that we were able to make off of this money or off these T-shirts, we could donate them to his little sister as like a little fun,
Yeah.
almost like as not a scholarship or whatever, but just be able to give back to her because she's really like smart. Her academics are really important for her, and that was something that Nick was always on her about, like, hey, school's first and then everything else next. So yeah, just finding ways to like give back to the community and like obviously his little sister. So yeah, we raised like $1,500, and
Nice,
yeah,
man.
that all went to her. And moving forward, I think we'll do something like that maybe for his birthday, is like put out some T-shirts and do
Keep
the same
keep
thing.
doing it.
Hmm.
That's great, man. It sounds like Nick was a wonderful human.
Yeah, he was a big cat, and it's crazy because when everything happened, you could see like he was a big catalyst
Yeah.
for people's like dreams and aspirations. Whatever it was like somebody was pursuing, he like just message them like, hey, I see what you're doing, like keep going, don't stop. Or even if it's just like in support of like buying a T-shirt off the brand or whatever. So um it just made sense for him to become a part of this company like 3 or 4 years ago when I went back to bring it back to life in a sense. Because in 2014, when we had like started Itty, the guy that I started it with, he was just kind of like, hey, bro, like, I can't give you 100%. I'd just rather not do this at all then
Oh, okay.
because I can't go all in. Um, and I was just like, man, respect. I appreciate you because, you're not just dead weight and I'm not carrying you. So, thank you for
That's brave of them to
sharing
do.
that with
Yeah.
me because we could have been doing this for years and you're just kind of like putting everything off to the
Half-assing.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I respected that. And at the time, I was in a point in my life where I couldn't really pursue it either because I went back to school. I was doing a construction business with my dad, and just like those days are exhausting. The last thing you want to do is go back to, drawing up ideas and trying to pursue clothes. And 2017 like was another big turning point in my life, and Nick was coming back from school and he was trying to figure things out. He's like, hey, I see what you're doing with Itty. Like, what's up with it? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I want to be a part of it. Like, I love what you're doing. I love the communal aspect that you want to pursue with this. And then, yeah, we just jumped off the porch, started figuring stuff out. Started doing like little once a month shows at these different bars, playing music for people, having like little pop ups here and there. And then I was just like, yeah, we got to keep going harder and keep this momentum moving. So here we are in 2020, 21, and we're putting out our first full blown collection. So
Sweet, man.
yeah,
I'm gonna.
it's been a ride.
I'm excited to cop a few of your items. Talking about what you guys were doing with these events.
Hmm.
You guys used to uh what did you guys used to do at these events? Because
Yeah,
it's very
so
exciting, and I would like to also follow up with, or maybe you can answer it after you explain that. Um, are you gonna continue with that?
definitely want to once like all this blows over with the quarantine. But with these events, we wanted to bring kind of like a sense of like modern culture to the desert, which is kind of like lackluster
Okay.
outside of Coachella Fest, right? So
Right.
the the worldwide phenomena that Coachella is only happens once a year in the desert, and it's very inspirational to like be a part of that, hear that music that's like very much a focal point of our generation. But you don't see that in the valley year round.
Oh, okay.
So what me and Nick aspired to do was bring those kind of like vibes and sounds to the desert like once a month in these different kind of like bars, and have an event where people could like listen to music that it's not like something that they hear at like your local dive bar week in and week out where it's kind of just like on repeat.
On the radio.
Yeah, and then on the radio. So we had this event called First Fridays, and every first Friday of the month we'd host an event. At the time it was at Bar on Palm Canyon,
Okay.
and we just reached out to the owner. We're like, hey, we love your bar. We love the kind of setting and vibe that you have here. We'd love to be a part of it. We have this company called Itty. We plan events and things like that, and we do everything from coordinate the event, plan the event, DJ the event, and
Just you and him.
just me and him.
Hey,
Yeah, so
that was kind of cool.
I would DJ, he would host, um, and we tried to get to the point where we had full creative control of everything. But the owner was just more so like, hey, nah, you guys are just DJs. So we're like, oh, this is a bummer. Like, we want to keep this moving.
He wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, he wasn't feeling it. And then I guess he was on the tail end of owning the bar too, because he was going to let it shut down.
Oh,
I guess there
really?
was some like in betweens him and the city where they were going to just tear down that whole block.
Wow.
Yeah, and like sell it or something like that. So he was like, hey, this is like your last month DJ. So we're like, oh shit, we gotta find First Friday somewhere else.
Okay.
um we didn't end up doing that because we couldn't find a bar that like aesthetically was pleasing, something that didn't already have like its stamp on it, whether it was like a Moxie or like a Village Pub or something like that. We wanted like full creative control. We wanted to be able to brand it behind us and just like know like hey, when you go to First Fridays, you're gonna hear some new, refreshing music. It's gonna be a vibe. It's gonna be like something where it's kind of like a breath of fresh air when you go here. Like you let loose, have a good time, be yourself, and just like have those kind of vibes with it. And then that didn't happen. We just ended up co-branding with the other promoters that already had something. So yeah, we just ended up like
Working
jumping.
with other
Yeah,
people.
working with other people, being able to like kind of like consult with them in a way like, hey, we love what you're doing. Maybe we could find a way to co-brand it. And then that's when we started dibbling and dabbling more in the clothes. So um, at the time, like I like to thrift a lot. So I was like, hey, maybe we could like take these clothes that don't really look as good because they have like some stains on them.
They left somebody's closet, obviously. Like
Yeah.
somebody used them
Mhm.
and didn't want to throw it away, but felt like somebody else could use it.
Yeah, and they were like really nice garments, but maybe they had like some holes. So maybe like I would take it, distress it a little bit more to make it look nicer. Maybe
Purposeful.
there was like some oil stains on it, and I would just, tie dye it in a certain color to where you couldn't see that anymore. So that's where the repurposed goods came with Itty,
Okay.
and that kind of like catching whim, and then we ended up doing pop-up events at different places. Yeah, so then I guess that kind of found its way into being more of like a focal point in the brand was like the garments, the repurposed goods. So that's the whole aspect of ITU as well, like to where it doesn't have like this main focal point of like, oh, we just do clothes. Oh, we're just the tie dye guys. Oh, we're just the DJs. Like, no, we're more like of a community of like trying to find ways that we could share our, likes and give them back to whatever said.
Plus, you're also like um, recycling, and you're
Mhm.
being like earth friendly.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool too.
And we were even thinking about finding ways to, and it sounds crazy, but you know how like different stores will get rid of their produce and just throw it away,
Hmm.
and like we were thinking about taking produce, using that as a way to upcycle again and make dyes out of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't end up doing it because it's probably like a lawsuit waiting to happen or whatever. But
It sounds like a process for
yeah,
sure.
no, it was gonna be crazy. So like he even looked up into finding like vegetables that you could soak in the water, turn that into like a dye, and like we're gonna go crazy with it. But
Jeez.
we just ended up like, oh no, we'll just find some dyes online.
Going into 2021 and being part of a community now, I feel like a band of brothers formed
Mhm.
uh, just out of uh, just out of whim. Like
No, it was
it was
purely
just
organic.
really creative
Mhm.
group of dudes that are taking over. I see you guys and I'm kind of envious because uh, I would love to be a part of that and more.
Oh
Obviously,
man, our doors are open. Like the culture corner is very much a thing of like communal vibes. So
can you explain on how that came about?
oh, it was crazy. I think it stems more so like where I was at the time in my life where like I had just prayed for days just to like find some like-minded people in my life. At the time I was like surrounded by not toxic people, but they weren't like
Looking out for your best interest.
that, but then at the same time they weren't like they didn't have goals. They weren't
Oh, okay.
aiming
So
for
pretty
something
stagnant.
bigger. Yeah, super stagnant. They were like comfortable in life. They were very content. And nothing against them, but for me personally, like I want to keep growing and I want to strive for something bigger than myself. So I was just like praying. I was like in a big rut. And then slowly and surely, people started like popping up in my life. And I remember after our first pop up at the Ace Hotel, um, EJ, the owner of Everbloom, actually came to one of our pop ups,
Okay.
and he was very adamant about buying these t-shirts and hats that weren't working on his phone, like the Venmo wasn't processing. So like I'm not leaving without these hats. So I'm like, bro, like it's cool. Like I'll just hold on to them for you. You could get cash, come back. He's like, no, 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 I'm gonna make it work. So I was like, man, this this guy's a good dude.
Yeah.
Like normally, like even a friend of mine would probably be like, oh, it's not working. Like push it to the side. So then we got done with our pop up. Ended up going to Las Palmas for a couple beers.
Shout out to Los
Shout out Las Palmas. Like you guys are a very big like focal point in the
Yeah.
community that like I fuck with, and ended up running into Marcel, EJ, Daniel, and Steve, the owner of Sixth Street out in Coachella. And that was my first time meeting them. We're all just chopping it up, and it was very like organic, very easygoing. We were able to like just dibble and dabble back and forth into things that were important for us.
Pretty uplifting. It was just
Very yeah,
constantly
and it was like a
good
breath of
vibes
fresh air because I was like, man, these guys like already doing things
on their own.
on their own. They're very like at the time EJ hadn't started his coffee cart yet, but he was talking about it.
Right.
So like fast forward now, he's
Look at him now, man.
yeah, he's opening up his first brick and mortar. So it's
Hey.
like, bro, that's inspirational. I need to be with more people like this. So then that just kind of like snowball effects. We're like sitting in front of Las Palmas,
Uh-huh.
3:30 in the morning. It's just me, Nick, and EJ, and like EJ doesn't even drink or anything. So I'm just like, man, what's up with this guy? Like,
Just hanging out.
he's either super crazy or just like he's a super genuine good dude. And fast forwarding now, I'm like, nah, like he's a super genuine
Yeah.
guy. And
I've talked to him a few times, and he's got a great vision of what he wants to
he's
do.
a visionary for sure. And like I could, resonate with that as well because I get something in mind. And at the time, maybe it's just like an idea, but like I want to keep building upon that.
Mm-hmm.
And with EJ, he's very much like that too. He's very methodical, very well thought out, very crazy, but very like inspirational to where I sit back and I'm like, man, maybe like I gotta set my goals higher now. And it's cool
Yeah, for
because
sure.
like that's how the Culture Corner really started, was like me, Nick, and EJ just sitting there when he's making coffee, and we're just like
Chopping it up.
chopping it up. He's slow. He doesn't really have any customers, and we're just all, shooting the shit back and forth. And then once that whole debacle happened with that sandwich store that they were working with, he already had his build out started at the place that they're at now.
Uh-huh.
And we're sitting there having coffee, and he's like, hey, bro, like, what are you doing today? I'm like, shit, I got nothing to do. He's like, hey, I got a lawn chair. You could go pull up right there. So I'm like, all right, yeah, that's tight. And then
Launch it.
yeah,
Just randomly.
I guess like they didn't they don't have a break room, so I guess I'll
Oh,
just sit
okay.
back in like whatever spot in the hallway and just pop up their lawn
Yeah.
chair and chill. So he's like, yeah, I got a lawn chair, you could just post up. And then yeah, I sat there, and then the homie Adam from Heaven's Demons, which is like another guy that I was able to like connect with, who's starting a business, and like
Mm-hmm.
all of us collectively have our own businesses.
Yeah, so you
And
guys aren't really trying to take from each other.
now like
Just contribute.
and that's what's cool, because that I prayed on that for years, was like I wanted to find people that were like going towards something and building on something, and like whether it's a company, whatever, he popped up his lawn chair. Next thing I know, like Daniel's like pulling up, he's like, man, like I gotta work today, but yeah, I'm over here like sitting here with you guys and like having coffee. And like then the next thing you know, the homie Poncho that has Off the Racks,
Hey, shout out to Pancho.
yeah, he did that, and he just started posting up with us. And I'm probably leaving more people out, and sorry if I did, but like it just collectively grew and grew and grew and grew. And like next thing you know, like it's like 8 to 10 of us sometimes on a Saturday just shooting the shit with each other. And yeah, we're talking about goals, ideas, like our next drops and things like that. So it was just very it was an eye-opening experience for myself. Like this dude from the west side was able to like come over to the east side and like you know um collectively build upon something bigger than myself. And that's what Itty was about too. In the mini doc that I shot with Kiros, I was like, I don't know why there's this disconnect between the west and the east side of the valley, but I want to be that catalyst and that bridge to be able to bring them together. And maybe that's where it starts with the Culture Corner, is where like something that happened very organically grew into something bigger than just us sitting in a lawn chair talking shit with each other, having coffee. But more so it's like a catalyst to bring the community together and like strive for something bigger, just to be able to support each other, but then also like give back in whenever time it happens. But yeah, I don't know where this ends up, but I know each month or so we're growing and growing individually. So I can only imagine where the
I was talking to Marcel. I think he was like 2 3 months into had opened his spot,
hmm
and I think we were at Eric's house, and he was kind of like pacing back and forth, and I was like, "What's up, bro? Like, like share." And he's like, "Man, like I see these cats in Indio that, they're killing it out there," and he's just kind of bummed out that out here in Palm Springs,
hmm
Cathedral City, that the type of culture uh, of like helping each other.
it's lackluster.
It's just I feel like we grew up in a time. Obviously, we all have different upbringings, but in Palm Springs, it's a tourist
Yeah,
attraction. It's a tourist attraction. So him as a business, like he has to appeal to a certain demographic.
right.
And out there, because there is no certain like well before India's grown so much, but
hmm
but there was nothing to do
Yeah,
but to like
support their own.
support and create a community so that you guys can grow.
hmm
And I feel like now that everybody has their own little thing going on, they look at it and they say like, hey, like we could keep doing this. And
Absolutely.
it's a great example for what I want to do. Also, like you're saying, you want it to be like a catalyst to bridge that. And I think with Luis and Renee with Selected Series, we started doing that, and we're gonna continue doing it.
hmm
Um, we went out of our way. I mean, we could have stayed within our own little, section of the desert, but we went over to Sixth Street and did Micah's interview,
hmm
and it was crazy. Then we went to Indio and did Christian's interview at the casino. Like it's all these little things that we. Oh, then we went to Daniel's shop and we recorded at Daniel's shop, but we had never been to any one of those
hmm
places before, and it opened up a different, a different. I asked, who did I ask? I asked Daniel, like, hey, who makes Sixth Street hats? Who's making their hats? Palm Apparel,
Oh yeah, Palm Valley.
Palm
hmm
Valley Apparel, and so I hit him up, didn't know him, and I gave him some business, like
Yeah.
just helping each other. Like some cat that I have no idea who they are, or some cats that I have no idea who they are. I saw what they're doing, inspired me to make a purchase
And that's what's cool, cause like there's enough bread for everybody to eat
for
out here,
everybody.
and I think people kind of they don't understand that by, you know, sharing the loaf with everybody.
Mm.
Everybody gets to eat,
And
and
when you don't have something, somebody has a loaf of bread to
mm-hmm,
give you to eat. You're
absolutely.
never gonna go hungry.
And then I think there's also kind of this stigma on the west side where it's like, hey, these cats are from Palm Springs, like it's a glitz, it's a glamour, like they're
Or they
jaded
have
and they
money.
have money, and it's like, bro,
No.
like Palm Springs and Cat City, like they're very much like twins in the sense where, you know, it's just as blue collar as Indio, Coachella, things like that. Like, yeah, there are some rich kids, but they don't stay in the valley. Like,
No.
all the rich kids that,
And they're
came
on.
up with money, as
Yeah,
soon as they graduated, they already had like their tickets punched to go to
for
the
sure.
next state,
They're on a different frequency.
university, Los Angeles, San Diego, wherever. They don't stay in the valley.
Mhm.
So like the ones that, stick around that are from Palm Springs, from Cat City, that are loyal to the soil, like they're staying out here and they want to put on for
Mhm.
whatever said things that they're doing. So with me, it was very important to connect with the people on the east side and like let them know like, hey, I'm one of you. Like,
Like peace.
yeah, like
Peace and love.
exactly. And they always get these kind of questions like, oh, what's Palm Springs like? I'm like, bro, it's the same thing as like 48 to 52. Like the
Yeah.
same way you guys are brought up, we have those same
Same
kind of
struggles.
things
Yeah,
over
for
here
sure.
too. So it was.
Cat City has it worse too because we're in between two rich cities, Palm
Mhm.
Springs, Rancho Mirage,
Right.
and we're looked at. We get clustered with that money,
Mhm.
and it's like nah, like everybody that works at the hotels lives in Cat City. Everybody,
Exactly.
all the customer service stuff is like blue collar
Mhm.
people, you know.
Exactly. And that's something where I could kind of like understand the Palm Springs Cat City dynamic is because like I went to school in Palm Springs. My dad lived in Palm Springs. My mom was in Cat City.
Mhm.
I knew like a lot of people from Cat City because I grew up out there. So like and then I played sports growing up the whole time too. So there was times where like somebody that played travel ball with me in Palm Springs ended up going to Cat City or DHS. So I was still able to keep that connection with them. Like, hey, how you been, bro? So like it's been able to be a networking thing where I'm like, hey, I remember you playing ball with me. I see what you're doing. Love what you're doing. I would love to support in any kind of way. So that's another thing too with Itty is like we try to just keep supporting and like keep that snowball, rolling and getting bigger and bigger and bigger because I'm very much like a wallflower kind of guy. Like I'm never in the mix. I'm never like that, super social person. Like
Yeah, you're not having a hard time on the mic, which is
I
good.
think that's kind of like the Gemini aspect of me, where it's like when I have that level of like comfortability, I could like
That's
kind of
good.
open up and things like that. But it's not that I'm antisocial. I'm just like a little more introverted.
Okay.
So I love to support, but I do it more so with action rather than just talk about it.
Hey man, thank you.
So like even when you guys had your networking thing
The
at
little
Las
mixer,
Palmas,
yeah.
like that was really cool. Like I loved that.
Thanks for showing your support.
And it was cool how it happened because my homie Creighton, who owns Create out in LA in Orange County, he did like a free haircut in part
Yeah.
of the giveaway. So I was like, let me see what this is about. I'm gonna see like what's going on, and it was cool because it was just a bunch of business owners that were trying to like
And
put.
you know the beautiful thing about this, sorry to
No,
interrupt
no,
you,
no, go ahead.
but everybody that put in like coupons or little giveaways,
Mhm.
they were all really like they were really first of all very available. Like
Mhm.
they got back to me real quick, and they all like all the little coupons. I let them know like, hey, can I design a little coupon for your business?
Mhm.
And Crane was like, yeah, bro, like I love to support anything to do with the desert. I'll support,
Yeah.
and especially seeing he's in LA, like
It's
seeing
so
that,
crazy to see
and he
his
came
growth.
down here.
Yeah, cause like he started cutting hair like I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. And I noticed it and I was like, hey bro, like I need a haircut. And he's like, oh yeah, that's tight. Pull up.
Oh,
And
okay,
he was
like
he
oh
was
yeah.
no nah, he didn't try to like, big dog me or with that whatever, but he's like, yeah, I could cut you at my dad's garage. I'm down here for the break or whatever. And he's like $10 cuts at the
Yeah,
time.
he was out in Fullerton, I think.
Yeah, so like he'd come down here for like, the holidays sometimes and I'd like hit him up and connect with him. And then eventually like he started growing to this platform where now he has like his own studio, private studio in LA where it's like a loft and it's like super nice and
Yeah,
he
he's
just
doing big
opened his own
things.
barber shop. So it's like cool cuz I was able to be a part of that growth and like see
Mhm.
him, start from like the $10 cuts all the way to now where it's like, man, like that's inspirational. I'm glad to like have that guy in my circle where I could reach out and be like, "Hey bro, like how you been? How's the shop going?" and just things like that and just connect on a level more so if it's like outside of business, like how you been, like how's life, and
Yeah.
shit like that.
So, with that being said, next next time we make a little mixer, um, you be down to be a
Oh
part of it.
man, like I would more so be offended if you didn't include me with it.
All right, so stay
Yeah,
tuned.
no, definitely.
Hopefully things smooth out this year and
Yeah.
we can get a lot more work done because right before the pandemic, everything was ramping up
Oh, it was
for
going so
everybody.
crazy. Yeah. I think that was more so of a way to like filter people out too that were like really weren't about it. It was more so like of a fad.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so like you either like let this pandemic make you or break you.
Yeah.
Like this was gonna like, be the jump start to you really taking off and like going so far into it to where this wasn't gonna slow you down. It was just more so like I'm gonna dive in and like learn more about whatever craft that I'm doing and let it propel me to different levels. Or maybe this isn't for me. I gotta figure out, how to provide for my family. And there's no disrespect to that either. Like everybody has their own kind of like, things that they either have to make bread and put food on the table for
Mm-hmm.
whoever, or they're like, nah, I'm gonna go even harder and like, not limit myself to whatever things that are going against,
When can we get our hands on this capsule?
um
Now is it limited
it's definitely limited quantities.
So once it's gone, it's
Once
gone.
it's gone, it's gone. Well, as far as like the logo, like the ITU Old English, like we'll keep that. Um,
That holds
yeah,
a very a sentimental
yeah,
value
cause
to you.
yeah, Nick actually designed the Old English itself. It's not just some like go to 1000ponds.com, type in Old English, and that's that. Like me and him, like we're like some bighorn sheep hitting heads.
All the
Like,
time.
yeah, we sat there for probably a month or two, and I was like, nah, you gotta tweak this a little bit this way. Like, the weight of it needs to be a little more proportionate. And yeah, he sat with it. So, um, we're gonna find ways to do different colorways with new collections and things like that. So,
This is pretty cool quality too. Is this
hmm
is the grays part of what the inspiration of that house, or is this just
man, you've hit something where it opens my eyes, and it wasn't part of the idea at first, but man, it makes sense now. Like the colors of the house, and
do you guys have any videos or photos of this house that we can maybe put on so
I
that
got some pictures like in the camera roll that maybe we could like show little teasers. Me and Omar will be shooting the 31st,
okay,
and then I don't want to say we're putting the collection out February 8th, but that's the date in the back of my mind.
so it drops.
Yeah, so
You have a goal in mind, but it's not set
that's like the deadline
for
for
yourself.
myself, but I'm not the type to be like the end all be all. Like I want everything to be able to, get its due diligence.
With these cats that you said might be filtered out of like throughout the pandemic, but they're teetering
hmm
to like, what would you tell them to like get them,
Like
you know,
motivated to.
like Jaime from 111 would say, get off your ass.
I mean, there's nothing I could tell. I mean, if you don't have it in you to like pursue
Hmm.
whatever said goal it is, like you're not really passionate about it. This is just a hobby.
I find myself being in a position sometimes where um, I'm stuck. Me
hmm
personally, creatively, or um, just in a rut, like
Yeah, now that
mentally.
happens.
Uh, I sometimes reach out, and for me, I would like to let the listener know, like, speak out. Like, whenever you open your mouth and you have a dream, and you let somebody else know about it, if they're like-minded or if they have a certain um not gift, but like if they see your vision,
Uh huh.
they'll probably hype you up in
Definitely.
enough. So if you say it enough, I think that's what this whole sea planner thing
hmm
is like. In myself, I was like, it was just such a like, it was ingrained in my head, and I said it so many times that I said, you know what, if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it
That's
ever.
something too, is like if you don't do it today, like when are you gonna really do it? And you
Hmm.
don't have to do something every day, but as far as like maybe you just come up with an idea, and that's something that's really helped me too, is like the 1% rule.
Okay.
So like each day, if I could do 1% of anything that I'm passionate about, that I want to like collectively help grow my business, by the end of the year, that's 365%. You don't have to do something once a week and it's like, 100% here. But if
Okay.
I collectively do 1% each day, that compounds way more over time rather than like
Hey, that's a good way to
I
put it.
gotta like do 100% this day, or I gotta do like half of it, on a Wednesday, half of it on a Saturday.
Just get leave those little anchors in so
Yeah,
that you can continue to.
those small wins add up, and I think it's very much like you don't have to like carry on so much weight at one given time. That's super stressful. Like I've been there before where
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I got this deadline of like,
So that's how you're work. That's how you're maneuvering yourself right now.
mm-hmm. I
You're
think
not
it's
putting too much. Uh, that's another thing because if you love it, you're gonna keep doing it. So like
yeah.
if you like you just gave yourself a deadline.
Even if you're in this rut, it's super hard to like stay inspired if you're not there like mentally to
Mhm.
try to like force yourself to work. So I've been in that like a lot of times where like I want to work, but like in like instinctively I'm like not there all the way.
Uh
So
huh.
it's better for me to sit back and just like let things kind of come to me naturally
Uh
rather
huh.
than putting out some work where
It's pretty nice too, though, if you surround yourself like with a group of like-minded people,
mm-hmm.
and they hold you accountable.
Yeah,
Okay, what's going on? You had this idea. You just spoke about it so much.
it's super
Let's see what's
important
going
too,
on.
like to not have yes men around you either.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm very grateful for, like with the people that I work with and like just share my ideas with. They're like, that's okay, or like, I think you could do better, or
Yeah.
like, that's fire, bro. Like, if I see like they do the eyebrow raise, like, oh, okay, like something resonated with them, or they're just kind of like looking at it and they're just like,
They're very honest because they know
yeah,
that they're not gonna. Well, they won't hurt your feelings because it stems from like a good place.
yeah. So like with my circle, like Nipsey said something like super profound. He said, if your circle doesn't inspire you, then you don't have a circle. You have a cage.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like if your circle around you doesn't inspire you, they're just gonna like lock you down and keep you in whatever time and place that you're at, and you're never gonna grow. Like if the people around you aren't continually like raising that bar to get somewhere in life where it's like, man, I need to get to where they're at, then you're just gonna be in this cage, not going nowhere.
Hey man, shout out to Nipsey.
Shout out to Nipsey,
R.I.P.
rest in peace, man. Like that guy was.
Thank you for coming out here and for me, like this whole Sea Planner
Mm-hmm.
podcast, it might sound selfish, but every single person that I sit with and have a conversation, it um it fuels me, and hopefully it fuels the listener. It also gives somebody that little push
Yeah,
to keep it moving.
and thank you for having me too. Like, it's humbling for me to have somebody reach out and be like, "Hey, I want you on my platform,"
Yeah, bro,
and
you're
it's
inspiring. You're inspiring. You've gone through so many different elements of struggle,
yeah,
and we can relate to. We're almost the same age. We have similar things in or just likes and dislikes, um, and I think we can bridge, those gaps
mm-hmm.
for people to not feel so secluded, and let people know that there are people that will fuck with them.
Mm-hmm.
Just just open up a little bit.
I think once you realize like it's way easier to find common interests rather than differences,
Yeah.
it's that much easier to kind of like find that commonality with people.
Spread love and it'll all come back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised like how far that gets you. And then especially like, we were talking about it last week where, if you're surrounded by a bunch of haters, it's probably to look best in the mirror and be like, hey, maybe I'm a hater.
Yeah.
But if you're like showing support, showing love, like finding ways to, give back, that's gonna come back to you tenfold.
Yeah, bro. I can't wait for it to come back to you tenfold.
I appreciate that, man.
Thanks for coming out. Stay
Absolutely.
tuned. We will have a lot more episodes coming up. This is just the beginning. Thanks for your support. We're out. Peace. Thanks, bro.
Oh, hell.